Hello, YouTube. Pastor Jack here. Welcome to my study. Welcome to my channel. First things first with Pastor Jack. Hopefully you will enjoy the video today. It's just going to be a short video, but I felt like doing this based off of our Sunday school lesson this last week at our church. We use back to Genesis literature, very, very good literature. Matter of fact, the best I have ever seen. And they were talking about parables, and I've been talking about parables on the channel, so I kind of put together 4 points to talk about, how to study parables, things you need to be careful about when you're looking at parables. And, the first point that I want to make is you got to do the exegesis. Of course, exegesis means that we study the scripture, the text, uh, and make it, what did it mean to the original hearer? So, when Jesus is given a parable, what did the disciples think about what he was saying? A good example of this is when I taught about the sower. If you remember, I talked about how that the sower, how they sowed seed then. And so, because that was the mindset that the disciples was thinking about whenever Jesus was talking about a sower. For Americans, we might be thinking about, somebody that's got a 3,000 acre field and they got a big combine and they're going out and planting seeds with a big, huge planter that's planting 50 rows at a time. That is not the imagery that the original hearers had. And so we have to go back to what the exegesis tells us when we look at what did the disciples think about what Jesus was saying. And that gives us the correct basis on trying to interpret a parable. The other thing, is that it has to be correct to the culture. Jesus, for instance, on the sower was given the parable to the Jews, and in the Jewish culture, as far as we know today, they didn't have planters; they sowed. And even though there might have been some other cultures in the day that had some kind of planters, but they didn't use those in Jerusalem. So that's all very important to really get the point that Jesus is trying to make in the parable is to understand the culture, do the exegesis work. The next two are kindly the same, but a little different, and they contradict a little bit. Don't force a meaning. Don't just look at the verse and try to make something mean something that didn't mean anything to the original hearers. That's so easy to do, and it's so hard to keep from doing it. You have to really be careful. You just can't try to force a meaning on something. But at the same time, we can't ignore the text. If there's some scripture that if God spoke it, then we can't ignore it. He had to do it for a reason. If you remember when I was talking about the sower, I talked about how some people try to say seed sown on hard ground is just like the seed sown in the thorns, and they're not. You have to be true to the text. Jesus put that other situation in there for a reason. One bore fruit and one didn't. And of course, the thorns of the earth, the thorns there, they cause the fruit not to mature, but a completely different topic than the ones that's sown on rocky ground. So you can't force a meaning, but then at the same time, you can't ignore the text. And that's something that it takes some experience to make sure you're doing it correctly. And then you got to stay true to the main point. Hermeneutics, one of the rules there is you can't make it mean something today than it meant to the original hearer. It can't be something different. It can be more. And people, look at me sometimes and say, what are you talking about? Well, You know, and I use a good example when Moses said, "Thou shalt not steal." The original hearers was looking and saying, "Well, that means I can't take something from my neighbor's tent that he's got laying out around his tent. I can't take that and keep it for myself." They wasn't thinking about using a password in some software because they didn't have software. But the fact of the matter is, if you're an adult and you're still using your mom and dad's Netflix passwords, so you don't have to pay Netflix an extra $9 a month or whatever it is. Maybe it's 19. I don't know. That's stealing, and that didn't mean that to the original here, but that is correct hermeneutics. We didn't make it say something different than it did to them. It's still saying the same thing about stealing, but stealing can mean more today than it did because the culture has changed. And so stay true to the point. Don't leave the exegesis. Stay true to it. Don't make it try to say something different now than it did then. But that the truth of the point can be bigger now than it was then. It can have more stuff in it now than it did then. So 4 little simple points. Do the exegesis. Don't force the meaning when you're trying to look at parables. Don't ignore the text. And of course, stay true to the point. If you'll try to incorporate these 4 points when you're looking at parables, matter of fact, you can incorporate these 4 points when you're looking at the scripture anyway. And if you can stay true to those, it'll help you in your understanding of the scripture. God bless you. Do the first things first, and I'll see you on the next video.